There is a truth very few people dare to face when they step onto the path of awakening. Not because it is complex or distant, but because it shatters a familiar image that many have been holding on to. The image that when awareness opens, a person becomes lighter, purer, rising above the movements of the body. Yet what happens for most who truly awaken moves in the opposite direction. When the light of awareness turns on, the body does not disappear. It becomes clearer, more vivid, more real, and at times unsettling because no one prepared them for this moment. Before awakening, many streams of energy move quietly within you, like background noise in a familiar room. You live in it every day but no longer hear it. Biological attraction, instinctive impulses, the pull toward life, touch, closeness, all of it is there, yet it flows through a half-asleep state. You react without truly seeing. You act from habit, from old programming, from loops that have existed for a long time. When awakening begins, the first thing that happens is not purification but exposure. The light of observation turns on inside. In that light, energies that once lay outside awareness begin to appear, not because they are new, but because you are awake enough to see them. This often comes as a shock, because many have been taught that awakening means rising above the body, above instinct, above movements judged as lower. When reality unfolds differently, doubt turns inward and people question their own experience. It is important to be clear from the beginning. Feeling the body more clearly, feeling biological energy more vividly, is not a sign of regression. It is a sign that awareness has touched a deeper layer of lived experience. When you sleep, you feel little. When you wake, the senses open. No one wakes from deep sleep feeling more numb. They hear more clearly, see more clearly, feel more clearly. Inner awakening follows the same principle. The problem is that many spiritual systems throughout history have told a different story. They placed spirit and body on opposing sides. One side seen as higher, pure, eternal. The other seen as lower, temporary, prone to lead one astray. From this division, an ideal image was formed. The awakened person is no longer moved by the body. The awakened person has transcended biological impulses. Repeated long enough, this image becomes an unspoken standard many strive to reach. Yet this standard is not based on the reality of awareness. It is based on fear, the fear of impermanence. The body reminds us that all forms change, all beauty fades, all moments pass. For the mind, this feels uncontrollable. The easiest way to cope is to deny or diminish the body. When the body is seen as something to overcome, the illusion can remain that there is a pure state beyond decay, but awareness does not operate through denial. When you begin to look directly, you see that the body does not vanish when awareness opens. It simply stops being hidden. You begin to feel the rhythm of life in small movements, the temperature of the skin, the vibration of breath, waves of energy moving through the nervous system. Along with this, biological impulses become clearer, not because they are stronger, but because you are no longer separated from your own experience. Many try to fix this. They think they have done something wrong. They return to old methods, tighten discipline, force themselves into purer frameworks. Yet the more they try to remove these experiences, the more inner conflict grows. You cannot use awareness to erase part of lived experience. Awareness can only see, not deny. At a deeper level, awakening is not a journey of becoming something else. It is a journey of becoming honest. Honest with what is unfolding within the field of experience. When the light of observation appears, everything is illuminated. The beautiful and the uncomfortable, stillness and biological movement alike. There are no exceptions. Nothing is excluded. Most early crises of awakening do not come from experience itself, but from the conflict between lived reality and the ideal image carried within. People expect awakening to make them purer, but instead it makes them more alive. And this aliveness includes the body, includes energy, includes movements they were not awake enough to notice before. This must be placed correctly from the beginning. Awakening is not leaving the body. It is returning fully to the experience of being human. When you begin to feel more clearly, it is not a sign that you are going the wrong way. It is a sign that you are truly present. And from that presence, a deeper journey can begin. Not a journey of removal, but a journey of recognition. Not a journey of escape, but a journey of integration. There is a very important question I want to place directly in front of you here. Not to test you, not to lead you, but to confirm something real. When you begin paying closer attention to what is moving inside you, when sensations in the body become clearer, when biological impulses are no longer faint as before, have you ever wondered if you are still moving in the right direction? If that question has appeared even once, leave a simple comment. No long explanation is needed. Just let me know that you are here. Your presence matters deeply to me, because creating content this way, without response, can easily feel like speaking alone into an empty space. Most of what unfolds after awakening does not resemble what people are usually told. Very few mention that when the light of awareness turns on, you do not only see thoughts more clearly, you also begin to see the body as a living field. Not the body as a static object, but as a system in constant motion. The breath has its own rhythm. The heartbeat carries subtle variations. Waves of sensation move through the nervous system. Along with this, energies that once moved quietly now step into the light. Before this shift, most people live in a subtle yet persistent state of separation. They live more in the head than in the body. They think about emotions more than they feel them. They talk about presence more than they actually inhabit it. As a result, many signals from the body are ignored, not because they do not exist, but because no one is listening. When awakening begins, this separation thins, and as it thins, everything becomes more vividly felt. What matters here is understanding that this clarity is not a special state. It is the natural result of attention. When you are truly present, the body no longer fades into the background. It becomes a living part of experience. This is often where confusion arises. Many have grown used to seeing the body as something to control, adjust, or even transcend. When the body begins speaking more clearly, they do not know where to place it within their spiritual map. There is a subtle paradox here. The more aware you become, the more sensitive you are. The more sensitive you are, the more you feel. And the more you feel, the easier it is to believe that something is going wrong. In reality, what is happening is that you are stopping the numbness. Many people have lived too long in reduced sensation and called it peace. But that was not peace. It was socially conditioned numbness. When numbness dissolves, sensation returns. And sensation always carries movement. Some try to stop at this point. They attempt to return to the previous state, where everything felt softer, quieter, less disturbing. But once the door of awareness opens, it rarely closes again. Awareness does not function that way. Once you have seen, you cannot pretend you have not. This is why the second phase of the journey is no longer about initial excitement, but about learning how to stay with experience without distorting it. At this stage, self-judgment easily arises. You compare what is happening inside you with an image of awakening you once heard about. When they do not align, doubt appears. But this doubt does not come from intuition. It comes from borrowed standards. The belief that higher awareness should mean less sensation, that awakening should feel light, transparent, removed from biological vibration. The truth is that awareness does not remove vibration. It makes vibration visible. It shows you that you are not only the observer of these energies, but also the space in which they unfold. This is often where loneliness appears, Few speak openly about this phase. You find yourself feeling more deeper, more intensely, while it seems that everyone else speaks only of absolute stillness. If you are here, if these words touch something familiar within you, leave a small sign, not to prove anything, simply to let me know that what I am saying is not dissolving into anonymity. Your presence, even as a short comment, is how we meet in this space. And to me, that is truly meaningful. What matters most in this part is not a new concept, but permission. Permission to feel, permission for the body to belong in the awakening process, permission for inner movements to be seen without immediate labeling. When you allow this, a new form of stability begins to form. Not stability through freezing sensation, but stability through being spacious enough to hold it. Many believe freedom comes from no longer being moved, but deeper freedom comes from being able to be moved without losing yourself. This can only happen when you remain with experience instead of trying to escape it. This part of the journey asks nothing for you to achieve. It simply invites you to stay. Stay with the body, stay with sensation, stay with the presence that is becoming clearer day by day. If you are in this phase, you are not slow, you are not wrong, you are simply going deeper. And the fact that you are here, reading these words, already says more than you might realize. Thank you for your presence. There is a very deep layer in this story that, if not faced directly, will cause the entire awakening journey to carry a subtle distortion that is hard to name. It is the real fear standing behind many ancient spiritual teachings. Not fear of sexuality, not fear of the body, but fear of impermanence. The body is the clearest symbol of change. It is born, it grows, it weakens, it dissolves. Every movement of the body reminds us that no form remains still. For the mind, this is unbearable. When people face impermanence without enough awareness, they look for ways to escape. One of the most refined forms of escape is division. Division between what is seen as higher and what is seen as lower. Division between spirit and body. Division between what is eternal and what is temporary. In this division, the body is usually placed on the losing side. It is seen as what pulls us down, as the cause of suffering, as something that must be controlled or transcended. But this division does not come from wisdom, it comes from fear. When you look back at the history of major spiritual traditions, a clear pattern appears. Very few teachings say the body is evil, but many say the body is dangerous. Dangerous because it changes, dangerous because it ties humans to pleasure, dangerous because it encourages attachment to what is unstable. From this anxiety, a strategy is formed. If the body cannot be made still, then make it less important. If change cannot be stopped, then shift attention towards something believed to be unchanging. What is rarely seen is that by making the body less important, fear is not resolved. It is simply relocated. Instead of fearing the decay of the body, one begins to fear anything that reminds them of the body. Sensation, attraction, biological waves that remind you that you are living in a finite form. When this fear is not named, it seeps into teachings, into standards, into the image of the awakened person that communities collectively maintain. From this, an ideal model is constructed. The awakened person is unmoved by the body. The awakened person has transcended biological impulses. The awakened person lives in a light state untouched by movements considered ordinary. This model sounds noble, but it places people into a quiet war with their own lived experience. The body does not disappear because you dislike it. Biological energy does not stop because you label it as lower. When this strategy of denial persists, something subtle happens. Unseen energy does not vanish. It moves into the shadow of awareness. It becomes something unspoken, unacknowledged, unshared. Anything pushed into the shadow begins to operate beyond conscious regulation. It is no longer a natural movement within the field of experience. It becomes an unconscious force, powerful, confusing, often accompanied by guilt and inner conflict. This is why many on the spiritual path carry a quiet, ongoing tension. On the surface, they speak of peace, stillness, transcendence. Inside, they are holding tightly to a part of experience that is not allowed to exist. They maintain a spiritual image while the body continues to live, to feel, to vibrate. This split creates deep exhaustion, not because the spiritual path is difficult, but because they are trying to live in two incompatible realities. Fear of impermanence sits at the center of this fragmentation. If you truly look directly at impermanence, you see that it is not the enemy of awareness, it is the condition of experience. Every moment has value because it does not repeat exactly. Every sensation has depth because it passes. But when impermanence is treated as a threat, people cling to an image of something fixed. In that process, the body becomes the sacrifice. The irony is that trying to rise above impermanence creates more suffering. When you deny the body, you also deny the most direct doorway into the present. The body is always here. It does not live in the past or the future. It knows only this moment. When you disconnect from it, you lose a vital anchor for presence. Then you search for presence through concepts, techniques, and mental effort instead of lived experience. At a deeper level, wisdom does not lie in choosing sides. It does not lie in glorifying the body, nor in denying it. Wisdom lies in seeing the fear behind the stories you were taught. When you see that fear of impermanence is the true driver, space opens. You no longer need to fight the body. You can begin listening to it as part of living intelligence. This part of the journey does not ask you to change any behavior. It simply invites you to examine assumptions you have carried unconsciously. The assumption that the body is an obstacle, the assumption that awakening means escaping biology, the assumption that deep feeling equals attachment. When these assumptions are illuminated, much tension dissolves naturally, not because you gained something new, but because you released an unnecessary war. When fear of impermanence is recognized, the body is no longer the enemy. It becomes a messenger. Each sensation reminds you that you are alive. Each vibration signals that you are present in a moment that will not repeat. From here, the awakening journey shifts. It is no longer an effort to rise above, but a willingness to remain. No longer a search for another state, but a readiness to see the state that is here. In this honesty, a deeper freedom slowly takes shape. There is a very subtle psychological mechanism quietly operating in many awakening journeys, and if it is not faced directly, inner exhaustion will continue to grow even when everything appears stable on the surface. This mechanism is repression, not repression through force or obvious coercion, but repression through ideals, an ideal of purity, of a higher state, of a version of the self that is no longer moved by what is labeled as lower impulses. When this ideal is placed above experience, anything that does not fit it is pushed aside quietly but firmly. At first, this repression seems effective. You feel more in control. You feel able to maintain a stable image in front of others. You learn not to speak about what is considered inappropriate. But what is not seen does not disappear. It only loses the right to appear in the light of awareness. And when something is not allowed into the light, it begins to operate in the dark. At the deeper level of consciousness, any form of repression creates fragmentation. One part of experience is accepted, cultivated, and called spiritual. Another part is pushed away, labeled biological, instinctive, or not elevated enough. These two parts stop communicating. And when an inner system no longer communicates fully, coherence naturally breaks down. You may still practice, still meditate, still speak about presence, yet inside there is a persistent tension that cannot be explained. This fragmentation does not always show itself clearly. It often appears as mental fatigue, as the sense of having to maintain an image, as conflict between what you feel and what you think you should feel. Many people at this stage blame themselves. They believe they lack discipline, progress, or awareness. But the issue is not effort. The issue is that you are trying to maintain a structure that does not allow the whole of experience to exist. When a stream of energy is repressed, it does not remain still. It finds another way to express itself. Sometimes it appears as obsession, sometimes as inner conflict, sometimes as unconscious behavior that even you cannot later understand. This is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of a system trying to rebalance itself. What matters here is understanding that awareness does not operate through control. Awareness operates through inclusion. Any part of experience that is excluded becomes noise. And when noise grows large enough, coherence declines. You may feel that you are moving forward, yet at the same time being pulled backward. This is not a paradox. It is the direct result of trying to rise while keeping part of yourself locked below. Many classical spiritual systems unintentionally reinforce this mechanism. They create ideal images of the practitioner, of higher states, of purity. These images are not wrong at a symbolic level, but when interpreted in an exclusive way, they become tools of repression. Practitioners begin measuring their experience against these standards. Anything that does not align is seen as a problem to fix. Here, a crucial reversal is needed. Coherence does not come from making experience cleaner. Coherence comes from making experience more honest. When you allow everything that is happening to be seen, the inner system begins to self-regulate, not by eliminating energy, but by giving it a clear place within the field of awareness. When a stream of energy is allowed to appear in the light, it loses its obsessive quality. It no longer has to hide. It no longer needs to take indirect routes to express itself. It returns to its proper role as a temporary movement within a larger field. And it is this larger field that creates real stability. Many confuse stability with freezing. They believe that if they do not feel strongly, are not moved, have no conflict, that this means progress. But real stability is not the absence of movement. Real stability is the ability to contain movement without breaking. A lake that is unstable is a frozen lake. A stable lake is one that can ripple while keeping its depth. When you repress part of experience, you flatten the surface by reducing depth. This may create short-term calm, but over time it makes the system fragile. One strong stimulus can shake the entire structure. In contrast, when all movements are allowed to exist in awareness, depth is preserved. And from that depth, ripples are no longer a threat. This part of the journey is not about indulgence or acting out every impulse. It is about ending inner war. When you no longer treat part of experience as an enemy, the energy that was once constrained begins to reintegrate into the whole system. When this integration occurs, coherence is no longer something you must strive for. It becomes natural. Many fear that without repression they will be swept away. But the truth is often the opposite. Repression is what creates the strongest pull. When energy is seen, felt, and allowed in the light, it does not need to shout for attention. It settles not because it is controlled, but because it is acknowledged. At this level, what matters is not what you feel, but your relationship to what you feel. Can you allow it to exist without labeling it? Can you stay with it without acting on it? When this relationship shifts, much tension dissolves on its own, not because experience disappears, but because the fight with experience has ended. Coherence is not the result of perfection. It is the result of wholeness. When no part of you is pushed into the shadow, energy flows naturally, and in that flow, a new sense of stability emerges. Not rigid stability, but flexible stability. A stability that can hold life with all its movements. This is the foundation for the next stages of the journey, where freedom is no longer an idea, but begins to be felt in each living moment. There is a persistent misunderstanding on this path, and if it is not dismantled, many people will waste enormous energy on unnecessary effort. That misunderstanding is the belief that awakening is a process of removing emotions, removing impulses, removing movements seen as incompatible with the spiritual ideal. Many enter practice believing that the further they go, the cleaner, lighter, and more refined experience will become. But awareness does not operate by the logic of reduction. It operates by the logic of expansion. Awakening does not make the inner world smaller, it makes it clearer. As awareness opens, what was once blurred comes into view. Not only thoughts, but sensations, biological vibrations, and subtle movements within the body. This often confuses people because they expect disappearance and instead encounter emergence. At this point, many begin to resist their own experience. Resistance often appears gently, a quiet thought that one should be different, a silent comparison with an idealized, awakened image, an attempt to adjust feeling to fit a concept. Yet every attempt to remove carries an implicit message that something in the present experience is wrong. When you label part of experience as wrong, you create a small but deep fracture in your relationship with yourself. Awareness does not open to eliminate life, it opens to see how life is moving. Every sensation is information. Every vibration carries data about the state of the system. When you try to remove sensation, you do not make the system purer, you make it less honest. That lack of honesty always exacts a price in inner fatigue. Many traditions have unintentionally taught people to narrow experience in order to feel safe. When sensation is reduced, conflict appears to reduce as well. But this reduction is not reconciliation, it is withdrawal. Any withdrawal from lived experience carries a long-term cost because energy does not disappear when ignored, it waits for another chance to express itself. At a deeper level, awakening is the process of becoming sensitive to signals, to movement, to very small changes in the field of experience. This sensitivity is not weakness, it is the sign of a system that has stopped numbing itself. When you become more sensitive, you feel more. And when you feel more, you have more information to live consciously. The problem only arises when this sensitivity is mistaken for something that needs fixing. When deep feeling is seen as attachment, the old war with oneself returns. But now it wears the language of practice, discipline, and ideals, making it harder to recognize. One thing must be placed correctly here. Awakening is not a state without movement. It is a state in which movement is no longer misunderstood. When you see an energy arise and pass without personal meaning, you begin to exit old loops. This cannot happen if you keep trying to remove the energy. Removal always contains fear. Fear that if left alone, things will spiral out of control. Fear that without intervention, you will be swept away. What few realize is that constant intervention is what creates the feeling of losing control. When experience is not allowed to complete its natural cycle, it becomes stuck, and what is stuck always returns with greater intensity. When experience is allowed to fully appear in awareness, something different happens. Energy moves through. It is felt. It is seen. Because it is not obstructed, it completes its cycle. This does not require acting on sensation, only not distorting it, not denying it, not rushing to change it. Awakening is not learning to become someone else. It is learning to stay with what is without losing inner stability. When you stop removing, much tension dissolves, not because you reached a higher state, but because you stopped creating conflict. At this stage, a new question forms, not how to eliminate feeling, but how to be with feeling without being carried away. This question opens the next doorway because it shifts focus from controlling experience to understanding your relationship with it. Many believe freedom lies on the far side of emotion. Real freedom lies on the far side of resistance. When experience is no longer treated as an enemy, energy once locked begins to flow again. As energy flows, the system self-regulates without force or rigid discipline. Awakening does not make you empty, it makes you whole. Whole not as accumulation, but as the absence of exclusion. When nothing is excluded, coherence forms naturally, not the coherence of artificial stillness, but the coherence of a living system capable of holding movement without breaking. This part of the journey asks nothing to be given up. It simply invites you to stop removing. When that war ends, enormous energy is released, not to chase experience, but to be more deeply present within it. From that presence, a new stability emerges, not stability through cutting away discomfort, but stability through being spacious enough not to be threatened by it. This is the foundation for entering deeper layers of awareness. There is a very subtle yet decisive shift on this journey, and if this shift does not occur, many earlier efforts will continue to circle through different forms of the same conflict. It is the moment you stop identifying with experience and begin truly observing it, not observing as someone standing outside of life, but observing from within life as it unfolds. This difference matters deeply because identification and observation create two completely different realities, even when the outer experience looks the same. When you identify, every sensation carries a personal label. A sensation is no longer just a sensation, it becomes a story about you. An energy moving through the body is no longer a biological movement. It becomes evidence that you are attached, weak, or not awake enough. From there, experience is pulled into a web of judgment, comparison, and self-control. This is where suffering begins, not because the sensation is too strong, but because you have tied your identity to it. Observation is different. When you observe, sensation is allowed to exist as a phenomenon. It does not need to prove anything about you. It does not need to fit any image. It simply appears, moves, changes, and dissolves within a larger space. That space is not affected by whether the sensation is present or not. This greater space is what creates real freedom. Many people believe that to observe, they must detach from experience. They try to step back, to dull sensation, to look from a distance. But that is not observation. It is refined avoidance. True observation does not make experience smaller. It makes the context wider. You still fully feel what is happening in the body: temperature, breath, contraction, waves of energy. At the same time, you recognize there is a field of awareness untouched by those movements. The difference between identification and observation is not intensity of sensation. It is your relationship to sensation. When you identify, you are pulled in. When you observe, you are with it. From the outside, these states look similar, but inside they are entirely different. When pulled in, there is always a sense that something must be done, changed, controlled, fixed. In observation, there is no such urgency, not because you are passive, but because nothing needs rescuing. This often confuses those accustomed to effort as progress. They ask whether doing nothing means sliding backward. This is the great blind spot. Observation is not doing nothing. It is a far higher level of alert presence than reaction. When you observe, the entire system is placed in the light. In the light, the system can self-regulate in ways willpower never could. A simple example: when a strong sensation appears and you think, "This is my problem," you lock yourself into a role, the one who must manage it. From that role, only two options exist: suppression or indulgence. Both keep you in the same loop. But when you see the sensation and simply recognize movement occurring in the body, without story or judgment, a third option appears, neither acting on it nor fighting it, simply staying with it. Staying is not endurance. Staying is permission. Permission allows sensation to complete its natural cycle. Every sensation has its own biological rhythm. It rises, peaks, and falls. When you interfere through identification, that cycle is disrupted. Sensation lingers, not because it is strong, but because you repeatedly return to it with thought, worry, and judgment. Observation interrupts this cycle naturally, not by forcing sensation to disappear, but by stopping the supply of identity. Without story, without self-reference, sensation passes. As it passes, you realize something important. You lose nothing by not identifying. You do not become cold. You do not lose your humanity. You become more alive without being swept away. At this stage, many people first touch a form of freedom independent of state. Before, freedom seemed tied to comfort. Now, freedom exists even when sensation is uncomfortable, because freedom is not in sensation, it is in your position within the relationship to sensation. Observation also reveals a subtle truth. No sensation exists independently. Every sensation is a movement within a larger field. That field is awareness itself. As you grow familiar with resting in awareness, you see it does not need protection from experience. It is not contaminated by what appears within it. A cloud does not dirty the sky. Rain does not harm space. Sensation is the same. The shift from identification to observation does not arrive as a dramatic moment. It unfolds quietly. Perhaps a moment where you do not react. Perhaps a moment where you stay with sensation without naming it. These small moments accumulate, and gradually a new inner structure forms. This structure is not based on control, but on the stability of awareness. One point must be emphasized. Observation does not make you disengaged from life. It allows deeper participation without losing yourself. Without identification, you can act more wisely, not from coldness, but from clarity. Clarity about what is happening inside. Clarity about what is driving action. Clarity about whether action is needed at all. This part of the journey marks an important maturity. You stop trying to become someone else. You remain with what is, but from a different place. The place of space rather than content. Awareness rather than reaction. From this place, many conflicts dissolve, not because they were solved, but because you stepped out of the position where they could dominate you. As observation becomes natural, a stability emerges that does not depend on inner calm or movement. You can feel motion without fear of being carried away. You can be with energy without turning it into a story about yourself. Within this stability, trust begins to form. Trust that you do not need to control every movement to be safe. Trust that awareness is wide enough to hold the complexity of living experience. This is not an ending, but it is a turning point. From here, the journey is no longer a battle with sensation. It becomes a refinement of the relationship between awareness and experience. Through this refinement, deeper layers of freedom open, where peace no longer requires escape from life, because peace has begun to appear within movement itself. There is a truth that once you go deep enough on this path, you can no longer avoid the truth of the body and of time, not as an abstract philosophy, but as something immediate and personal. This body is changing every day, not only in old age, but right now, each cell being born and dissolving, each breath a moment that will never repeat. And when awareness becomes subtle enough, you no longer sense this as an idea, but as a real vibration within lived experience. Before awareness opens at this layer, many people take the body for granted. It is there to serve, to carry them through life, to meet needs. But as observation deepens, the body is no longer a passive tool. It reveals itself as a process, a continuous flow of birth and decay. And here an ancient fear begins to surface. The fear that if everything changes, there is nothing to hold on to. If all forms dissolve, then what truly has value? Many belief systems answered this by denying the body, saying what is temporary is not worthy of the heart, urging people to turn toward the eternal, the unchanging, the timeless. And at one level this brings comfort, but at a deeper level it creates a painful split, because you cannot live outside of time. You can only live in this moment, in this body, with its very specific limits. As impermanence becomes clear, another question arises. Does something only have value if it lasts forever, or is it precious precisely because it does not? This question cannot be answered through theory, only through direct feeling. When you are fully present in a moment, knowing it will not repeat, that experience carries a different depth, not because you force depth, but because you no longer take it for granted.